Liz.
Hey, Elon.
Could you please tell our audience the 5 things you did this week to grow the podcast?
Oh my God. I was not expecting that question. I'm not prepared with a list. Wow, I'm scrambling just like the federal employees are scrambling after Elon's request yesterday.
I mean, you just failed your performance review. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh my God, please don't kick me off the podcast. Don't kick me off the podcast. Let's start recording. Don't kick me off the podcast. Let's talk about it. So, as Olu mentioned at the beginning, our first topic today is going to be those emails that Elon sent out to federal employees asking them to list their accomplishments from the past week. They have until midnight Eastern on Monday to list 5 accomplishments from the past week, or if they don't submit those emails, see that as a sign that they want to resign. This email came on a Saturday afternoon, just a sunny, in some places, not everywhere, but a sunny Saturday afternoon. You're minding your business.
I'm weeping over here in the East Coast. What do you mean sunny?
For some federal employees, it was a sunny Saturday afternoon. For others, it was dreary and freezing. And then they wake up to this email asking them to justify what they did in the last week.
I mean, this is like a diseased consultant brain. Like this is like business school, management school, consultancy, school nonsense.
I'm gonna stop you right there. Because the thing is, and you don't know this about us, audience, but Olu is not the team business person. Here I am, and I'm gonna stand up for MBAs because I have one. That's not what they teach you in business school, okay? Elon did not go to business school. That's not what they teach you in business school. You don't surprise people with random asks on a Saturday afternoon.
Performance review on a Saturday afternoon. That's insane.
No business person should operate that way or does operate that way.
I don't know. I feel like this is like LinkedIn brain. Like if you've ever had the misfortune of like following some of these people, like these are the people who do performance reviews for their spouses or their children.
Oh, I hate those. I hate those. Yes, let's get together and do a PowerPoint presentation of the year and like have a planning session and put an Excel sheet together. I hate all of that. It's good to be organized, but there's a level it gets to where you're like, please stop. But yes, Elon is taking his patented management style that did so well at Twitter. He's bringing that to the federal government, and people are getting, upset, as they should.
It's ridiculous. It sent this email out to 2.3 million people. Let's assume all of them respond. Actually, let's assume, 30% of them respond. That's like at least 700,000 people. Isn't that going to just shut down the email servers?
I don't know. That's a good question. That's a good question.
Also, there were 4 or 5 employees at Doge that we know of. Like, who is going to review 2.3 million emails?
AI. That's what they're going to tell you anyway. Elon's AI is going to review those emails. Some agencies did tell their employees not to respond. So, for example, Department of Justice, National Security, Homeland Security, FEMA did tell their employees not to respond. I mean, given the list of names, the Department of State and NSA and Homeland Security, they're working on confidential shit. Like, you can't yesterday I tracked 3 terrorists through XYZ city. Here's it in an unsecured email format that can be easily accessible. Go off. Nobody's going to do that. So some agencies did tell people not to respond. One of the largest labor unions for federal employees or labor groups told their members to run it up the chain. So their response was creating chaos. They're like, don't respond to the email, forward it to your supervisor. And if your supervisor doesn't have guidance, forward it to your supervisor, and just keep going off the chain. So that's another option. Instead of responding, you can just cause more chaos.
it's going to be a never-ending reply all nightmare, which, I mean, we all hate.
Until it gets to the president, yes.
And then people will be like, I don't know why I'm in this email thread. Please remove me.
Replying all, right. Reply all to be like, please remove me from this email thread. I mean, it's, we're laughing about this and it is kind of funny and like dumb. But I try to put myself in the shoes of an employee who has worked in the federal government for like 15 years, knows their job, and the anxiety it must feel like every day to get ready to go to work and not know what bullshit is going to come down the pipe today. Like, it's so frustrating that this government and administration seems to really have it out for really the people who keep America running in certain ways, right? Like, these are civil servants. They're not the best paid people. Many of them could probably get other jobs that paid more, but they're doing these jobs and they're doing them to keep the country running, and we are attacking them constantly. And by we, I mean Elon and Trump are attacking them constantly over their jobs. They're just trying to do their jobs, nothing else.
Exactly. And the ridiculous part is Elon Musk would actually fail this same performance review that he's asking, federal workers to review. Like, let's go over the week he's had. He claimed that he saved the federal government like $8 billion. Turns out it was $8 million, right? Like,
few extra zeros were added on there.
An error by like 1,000%, right? Like, and that was put on a federal website and went out to like the entire nation, including international media. Imagine if you effed up that hard at your job, where like you sent out a memo that went out all around the world to all the shipping magnates or whatever it is that you're doing. Imagine if you made that kind of error. Like, what email would you be getting on a Saturday afternoon?
You would be fired.
Exactly.
Fired. Like even if you look at, and even the people who do the like family performance reviews, how many of Elon's mothers of his children had to track him down this week via Twitter, right? He's not doing his quote unquote job well at home or at the office. Where is he succeed? I'm so curious. Like, this man should not be in charge of anything at all. He cannot function in a reasonable and logical way. It's a lot of like random asks, throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks, making shit up, completely fabricating things, not fact-checking, and then spreading that bullshit across the world. It's insane how much power he has. In fact, I just saw an interview with the senator, one of the senators from Utah, said in, I think it was Face the Nation or one of those like Sunday morning talk shows, where he is telling Elon, he said, they kind of asked him, like, what do you want to say to Elon, given how he's sort of managing all these government cuts? And he said he wanted Elon to exercise some compassion with the... And I was like, you're fucking Congress. Why are you begging Elon for compassion? Do your job and hold him accountable. Why are we begging Elon? You're a senator. You're a Republican senator. You should be able to stop this if you have a problem with how it's going.
I mean, you're absolutely right. Just all sorts of nonsense coming out from Republican congressmen. I mean, can you guess what Susan Collins said? Can you guess the word she used? Was she looking into it or whatever? What is she? No, she was concerned.
Oh, she's always concerned.
Exactly.
She's always concerned. That's her favorite word. Yeah.
That's her favorite word. Just a useless word that doesn't mean anything. Meanwhile, your president is threatening your state, and Elon is firing everybody. I mean, Maine has all this like beautiful natural resources, all these beautiful parks. What's going to happen to your own constituents? And the best she can offer them is that she's concerned. And that's what she's always done.
She's always concerned and then does the opposite of what's helpful. I mean, Susan Collins she's one of the more frustrating senators this is part of why last week I said, and we said on the podcast, stop calling Democrats. Stop calling them. Stop. They can't do anything. I know people keep talking about like, oh, Bernie's going on tour. What? Good for him. Kamala had massive crowds at her rallies. We all saw what happened in November. Going on tour and getting a crowd at a hotel ballroom is fine. You need to harass the Republican senators and Congress people. They are the only ones who will be able to do anything if they choose to get off their asses and stop rolling over for Elon. And God help us all, because it's really up to them. There's nothing the Democrats can do, like realistically, to stop this. And along those lines, people are saying things to Republican Congress people, right? Like we are seeing them having town halls in their home states and towns. And that's not really been going well for some of them. I think we've all seen the videos of people who are like screaming at the Republican congressperson, asking him what he's doing, him or her, but usually him, what they're doing about what's happening. And that's like, we'll segue to our next topic, which is the Republican Congress people and the response they've been getting since they've been going home.
Absolutely. I mean, as you said, people seem to be getting the memo and are actually now taking their Republican Congress people to task. I mean, even in places like Texas, East Texas, which is overwhelmingly Trump land, people are asking their representatives, what's going on? Like, why does Elon have this much power? There's so many videos going around of just regular schmegular Americans, like asking the Republican senators what's going on. And this is what we need to see.
Yeah, agreed. And I think the fascinating thing is like, it's not just the sort of typical people you would expect. It's not like Democrats are the ones asking these questions. Many of the people who are asking their senators and Congress people to do their job are the Republican voters who voted for them. There's been coverage about it. And I think part of what is driving that is there's also been a lot of like leopards eating faces news. This first month of Trump's presidency, almost from day one, the news started flowing in of people who are beginning to see consequences, especially with like things like the government firings that happened and people realizing that, oh, my kid is going to be laid off as part of this. My friend is going to be affected as part of this. That's part of what's driving this pushback at these town halls. But it is fascinating that, you could have told these people all of this was going to happen prior to January 20th, and they would not have believed you. And now we're only 30 days in. Like, do people realize Trump has only been president for 30 days? Like, it's only been a month of Republicans. We said let them cook. They've only been cooking for a month. And already the backlash is beginning. People are concerned. As Susan Collins said, people are asking questions.
Yeah, I mean, the kitchen is like up in flames, essentially. And
It
there
is.
are no firefighters coming because Congress is just like, whatever.
We don't need them.
But if you have had the misfortune of watching Fox News, which I do sometimes because I'm a masochist, it's actually made its way in. So, like, Jesse Waters actually complained about this.
No, not
last
Jesse.
week or earlier this week. And it's essentially the same typical thing. He has a fishing buddy, like somebody who he likes to fish with, who is a veteran, who also just started working for the federal government and got fired. And Jesse Waters was on the 5 with his other, cronies. And he is essentially making the case that this firing should be more compassionate. But, again, only for his friend and only for people who are his friend, only for veterans who are Republicans, right? Because he still goes out of his way to say, like, oh, this guy's not a DEI person.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's been happening, right? Did you see there's been a tweet on the subreddit? This one was not on Leopards Ate My Face. This was on Murdered by Words, which was funny. But the original tweet that this person was responding to was, this is from someone named, actually, I'm not going to say the name. You can go on Reddit and look it up. I don't want to like dox anyone or be accused of doing that. But this is a tweet. It says, "My daughter is losing her job thanks to Doge. I voted for Trump 3 times. My daughter is a hardworking, excellent worker for Manistee National Forest. I'm pissed." And then she tags POTUS and Elon Musk and says it's not right. She said her daughter is losing her job. Her daughter doesn't work for DEI. She runs the office at a national forest. Why is she getting fired by Elon and Doge? It's so interesting because, again, if you had told this woman last year, your daughter's job is going to be at risk if Elon and Trump win the election, she would have said, no, my daughter is not DEI. It doesn't matter. And if you would have tried to explain to her that they're threatening cuts, they're threatening layoffs. I literally had this conversation with multiple conservatives on TikTok Live. You are going to see government firings if Trump wins. They all said, not going to happen. And now, only when it actually impacts someone in their lives do we finally have the realization and reality set in. And it's a little sad, honestly. It's a little sad that people could not take themselves and think big picture, think about other people. And even after Trump won, there was still no concern until it started impacting people in their lives.
And the other problem is that they still can't think about other people, right? Like all of these examples, the lady you were talking about and her daughter, Jesse Waters and his friend, like they're all still like just making a case for them and themselves only. And they keep saying, oh, we're not the DEI, we're not the waste. Like, I don't understand, like, why do people keep thinking that there's going to be like a surgical hate machine that would only like pick on the person they hate? Like, that is not how it works. Hate is not rational. Hate will like spread and catch everybody in its net. I don't get it.
No, it's so true. And you know, the word you mentioned about being surgical, there is nothing in Elon's track record, and we keep talking about Elon because we've said multiple times he's the actual president. I don't even know why we still have to say this, but it's so clear, right? And there's nothing in Elon's past history of managing businesses and companies that indicated that he would be surgical about this. How many people have been fired or laid off in these cuts by Doge and then asked to return to their jobs because it was like, oops, we actually need you guys? You know, laying off IRS agents before tax season. These are things that don't make any sense. You know, cutting the department that researches things like bird flu during a bird flu outbreak doesn't make any sense, does it? I just don't understand how many more times we have to keep giving these people chances to fuck shit up for everyone before we learn. And I'm glad to see that some Republicans, not all of them, mind you, some Republican voters are going to town halls and complaining and telling their Congress people, you need to do something, you need to check these people, you need to make sure they're not doing these cuts, you know, willy-nilly. But not all of them. There are still Republican voters that say what is happening makes sense to them, what is happening is good. And anytime I meet those people, all I tell them is just wait. You're literally one Truth Social post away from being this lady talking about, I'm pissed, I didn't vote for this. You have no idea what else is planned because many of you didn't read Project 2025. So just wait. If you're still a Republican voter who thinks all of this is good, just wait. And if you're someone who's realizing the issue, welcome. Thank you for joining the rest of us in reality. Now, please go tell your Congress people, please keep going to those town halls, make stuff hard for them, make it uncomfortable so they don't go on TV pleading for mercy from Elon.
I mean, it's just so sad and disheartening because, like, you're seeing the depths of people's selfishness and narrow-mindedness and inability to, like, see anybody's humanity apart from their own. I mean, Did you see the news about the Tennessee county that voted overwhelmingly for Trump, but like
No,
the main business in that county is actually making pennies, and Elon Musk is going to
yep.
like
They shut
discard
down pennies.
pennies.
Yep. Trump
But
said
this
too that
is
they were going to stop making the penny. It's too much, too
exactly,
expensive.
exactly. And on some level, they are right. Like most people are not using pennies anymore, right? But this is the problem. People are too eager to see other people as wasteful, other people as parasites. And then when that language is then turned to you, because on some level, he is right. If we're not using pennies that much, that is considered wasteful. But the problem is that anybody can then label you as wasteful, and they have no plan for what they're going to replace your jobs with when they eliminate you as waste, right?
No,
Like,
they don't.
what are they going to do for this county when they remove the pennies from circulation, when they stop ordering pennies? And this is how communities die. There's only one factory. There's only one plant. There's
There's one
only one
industry. Yeah.
industry. And then if you remove that, it
Mm-hmm.
just decimates American communities over and over again. We see that whenever companies leave a small community, it leads to huge problems for that community. And they don't have any plan for that. They're just so willing to consider that county wasteful, and they're going to take away the only livelihood they have there.
That change that happens only impacts that one county. But imagine this multiplied. Think of the places where, for example, national parks are going to lose employees. And so they may not see the traffic they usually see in the summer, which is peak, park visitor season. That's bad. That town's going to suffer. There are border towns in the U.S. For example, in Washington State, there's a town that borders the Canadian border that recently had an event to cheer on Canada and encourage Canadians to visit because Canadians are no longer planning to spend their money in the U.S. And that's bad for the tourist towns that depend on Canadian tourism. Places like Florida, it's not tiny towns. It's not just tiny towns in Washington. Florida, Orlando, Disneyland, lots and lots of Canadian visitors saying they're not going to come this summer. They're not going to visit Disney this summer because they don't want to spend their money in the country that's, coming after theirs. These things have real impact. And the people who don't get impacted it's fine to sort of stay home and discuss the merits of this like it's hypothetical. I want those people to also ask themselves, whatever this money is that Doge is saving, and I put the word money in quotes here because, we don't even know what the actual number is because Elon lies. Whatever Doge is saving, where is that money going? Is it going to pay the national debt? That's one thing I heard so often. We need to get the debt down. We need to get the debt down. We need to pay off the debt. Is that where the money is going? My answer to you is very unlikely. And the reason I say that is because we've already seen examples of some of the stuff that's happening. For example, Kristi Noem, podcast favorite and dog murderer, just told us this week that Trump has asked her department, the Department of Homeland Security, to spend $200 million running ads congratulating Trump on closing the border. How is this a good use of money? For the people who talk about government waste and spending, how is DHS spending $200 million to basically run Trump campaign ads a good idea? But we can't make the penny and keep a town in Tennessee alive. These are the kinds of decisions that the people in office right now are making. They're quote unquote saving money, but they're going to use that money for even more quote unquote waste. How does that make sense?
I just have to deeply sigh because I don't even know how to respond to that, right? Because unfortunately, they told their voters that they were going to close the border, and they have to then put out propaganda to make those people feel like they closed the border. They're trying to give the people what they want, right? And unfortunately, what the people want is what is killing them. And it is just so heartbreaking and so sad.
It's sad, it's lame, it's frustrating. And again, when I heard about this thing with DHS, for example, and this $200 million, my first thought was, but he's not running again, right? Like, that's the kind of thing we would get annoyed that Biden wouldn't do, right? He wouldn't like champion his accomplishments enough. And so people were like, oh, he's not doing anything. Why does Trump care if people know that he closed the border? First of all, the people who care already know. I mean, actually, the real first of all is the border is not closed, but that's not a discussion we need to get into.
I was going to say, like, this is just a straight up lie.
This is bullshit, but let's say it is closed. The people who care about that stuff know this already. In fact, hours after Trump became president, we all started hearing from conservatives saying, oh, Trump closed the border. Trump is doing great on immigration. Great. They already know who are these ads for, right? Why do these $200 million, if I were thinking like a conservative, isn't that a bunch of deportation flights that you guys are not going to get now because they had to waste it running ads on Fox News to preach to the choir? Like, make it make sense. It's just, even the stuff you say you want, they're not even delivering for their voters. So many things don't make sense. And I reiterate, we are only 30 days in. We still have 3 more years of this. At 3+ more years of this. I'm so annoyed. It's so annoying.
It's just fascinating how quickly things are unraveling. This is the problem with Trump. Like, whatever level of chaos you predict, he just somehow manages to like exceed your expectations. Like, you cannot set the bar, low enough, right?
You really can't.
And like, did you see that Kristi Noem said that actually this was Trump's idea? Like, Trump told her specifically to run this ad, and she's just going to do it because he is a yes man. She is a yes man or a yes woman, I guess. I don't want to misgender her. She's a yes woman.
Don't misgender her. That would be very bad.
Right.
No, I mean, there's no pushback at all. There's no pushback.
But like, this is why we also just need to like really, really pay attention, right? He has put into the Department of Homeland Security a yes woman. He has fired the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the military. He's fired that person. He's going to put in a yes person, a yes man into the position. And that person's only qualification, according to Trump, is that he wears a MAGA hat and tells Trump that he would do anything for Trump. Now, y'all remember that Trump tried to use the military against American citizens who were protesting against him. Like, do we understand the level of danger we're dealing with here, where like so many people in Homeland Security, so many people that he's putting into the military as leaders of the military are going to like not say no to him. The reason why he didn't use the National Guard against protesters during the Black Lives Matter protest was that like his army chiefs told him no, and he's systematically replacing those people with yes men. This is like so scary to me.
That is scary, and I think it's a real sort of sign, I guess, of how much the Republican Party has really just abdicated all responsibility and common sense. These are things that if a Democrat had done, there would be people with AR-15s, at the White House gates trying to burn the whole thing down, right? When they thought, it wasn't true, but when they thought the election was stolen in 2020, they ransacked the Capitol. Now, things are happening that are against what we say we care about as Americans, what we stand for as Americans, and nobody's doing anything. And they're all just sort of sitting there like, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure Trump knows what he's doing. I'm sure a billionaire, deciding what middle-class person gets fired from their government job, that makes sense, right? That's totally fine. No big deal. I don't know. I really don't know when the fever breaks and the delusion, breaks for people. I'm sitting here watching these things happen, watching the Republicans, voters and politicians let these things happen, and nobody's doing anything. I think this Republican Party, like when we look back in history as a nation, they're really not going to come off very well. I don't know if they know this, even now, we don't even have to wait for history, right? They, as I keep saying, they did not win a majority of the American voter. People who have eyes and ears and brains are already upset. It's 30 days in. We just talked about the town halls and Republicans going home to their districts and finding out their voters are not pleased with how things are going. I really think the Republican politicians are ignoring all of this groundswell, this bubbling that's happening sort of under the surface. They're ignoring it to their own peril. And I'm not rooting for Republicans. I'm not trying to help them win. I think it's fascinating how they continue to act like they have a mandate when they really don't. They really do not. Most Americans don't agree with what's happening and did not vote for this. That's just fact. But they continue to act like they have no moral compass, nobody to answer to, and like we don't have midterms next year. It's really fascinating to watch.
I mean, your first example, or your earlier example, was about the election and how much they got up in arms about election lies. But I mean, forget something even that serious. Remember the gas stove panic and all the Republican congressmen and congresswomen issuing all sorts of protests and statements about, oh, Biden is coming to take your gas stove. Here is what I am doing to stop that from happening. When it was simply a recommendation that was not a law, it was just like a guidance, like,
it's a suggestion.
Maybe we should not let gas, flow into our children's lungs and cause, asthma in our children. They put up more of a stink for that, which was actually intended to help children, than they are doing for gutting funding for children right now. That is the level of contempt they have for their own constituents, where they do this pantomime that has nothing to actually do with the lives of their residents and their voters. It's just meant to make them angry. And then when it comes to the time to actually take care of their voters, they don't show up.
But, we can continue to have the conversation about Republican hypocrisy and foolishness and, lack of a spine for forever. But I want to talk about something else, which is, quite honestly, one of the sad outcomes that's happened since Trump took office. And I don't know if you know this actress named Hunter Schafer. She's a lead cast member in Euphoria. I know you don't watch Euphoria.
Well, I don't, but unlike many Republicans, I don't need to know somebody to understand what they're going through. So I did hear about this, and I agree with you. It's very sad.
Well, yeah. I mean, yes, we're not monsters. I just want to, for people who don't know, Hunter plays Jules' character in Euphoria, which is a massive TV show on HBO. But she recently had to, Hunter Schafer is a trans woman. She recently had to have a passport issued. Again, she already had a passport, but she lost her passport during a trip, and she had to get a new passport this year after Trump took office. And when she received her new passport, her gender on her passport had been on her old passport, and every document she had prior was F for female. And when she received the passport this month or this week from the passport service in the U.S., because of Trump's executive order that he signed on his first day, he came into office, he could not wait, signed this executive order. Hunter's new passport has her gender listed as M for male. And she made a TikTok video explaining how even though she's this, successful, popular actress, she's not protected from this kind of negative impact of the things that this administration is doing. And it was honestly sad to watch because it's a level of cruelty that is so unnecessary. You basically, the government is forcing her to out herself every time she goes through customs. And, as an actress, she's going to go through customs when she comes back from a trip, right? Every time she does this, she's going to have to out herself as being trans because of Trump. And so she made a TikTok sort of explaining this to tell people, what's happening, to say this is real, this is having real impact on people, to raise awareness.
Yep. And this would not only affect her in the United States, right? There will be many countries where she would not be able to go to for fear of outing herself when she shows them the passport, right? Like the world is not a safe place for transgender people in general, and the US government is directly putting her in harm's way by like putting it on her passport that she has a different assigned at birth designation than what she actually is and what she's actually presenting as. And that's the point. The point is cruelty. The point is to make her uncomfortable. The point is to make her unable to live her life freely. And it's stunning to me.
Yeah. And, the percent of trans people in the U.S., trans adults, is like 1% or something. This is not a large group of people. Nothing that is bad about America is due to trans people. It's so upsetting that this man came into office and the first thing he chose to focus on was not, again, anything that has impact on the people who voted for him. Trump and Republicans made this an issue, riled up their voters to care about something that has nothing to do with anyone except, the trans individual, and made it such a big deal that when he came into office on his first day, he had to sign these types of rules. Not only that, did you see his interaction with the governor of Maine this week, where he basically threatened her and her position as governor because she said she would not be complying. The state of Maine would not be complying with the government's ruling on trans athletes in sports. This is not a problem. This is not an issue that needs presidential intervention. It's insane to me how hyper-focused this party, the Republican Party, has been on this topic when it affects such a small number of people who are just living their lives and did not ask for any of this attention.
Absolutely. And if there's anybody out there who wants to make a case to us, how this trans issue actually affects the prices of your eggs, how it affects the prices of your insurance premiums, how it affects the price of insulin, how it affects your social security, how it affects your benefits, how it affects the things that you actually care about. I would really like to hear it, because Trump is vindictive, right? That's what we know about Trump. He's picked a fight with Maine. I guarantee you, if Maine has any kind of trouble, if they have any kind of natural disaster, if their bridge falls apart, he is going to withhold funding to the state of Maine over that, right? Because he's a petty man. And if you're somebody in Maine who is well, I like what he's doing to trans people, Hunter Schafer is living her best life in Hollywood. She is not going to suffer from the loss of your bridges and the loss of your dollars going to insulin premiums. I don't understand why people are not able to if somebody is sinning or whatever, that's between them and their God. What has that got to do with you?
Sinning. Oh my God! Really I get what you're saying.
Try to come down to people's
level of thinking. Yeah.
So you have a problem with it on a moral level, but what has that got to do with the price of eggs?
We're giving them too much grace. It's just it's like you said, it's cruelty. It's the blinders that Christians, the overly religious zealots, judgmental people have, where it's their way or the highway. So a trans person can't exist living their life. They have to conform to that person's, sense of how the world is. And, quite a few Christians are like that. If you're a Christian listening to this, that's, you may not be like that, but there's people who are like that and use religion as as a club to hit everyone up the head with. It's just how people are. And I think it's sad. Obviously, Hunter is, like you said, she's a successful actress. She's in Hollywood. This is not necessarily something that's going to negatively impact her right away. Obviously, as a trans woman, she's still not immune to the dangers of being a trans person. And, I wish her the best. I'm sure it was really disheartening for her to open that passport at the new one and see that. And that's what prompted her to make that video, even though she really doesn't post on social media. I think she has like 2 videos on her TikTok account total, and she's a young actress. So she felt strongly about this and wanted to talk about it. And she's an example of something that's happening across this country to millions of teenagers and young people and trans people who are just trying to navigate their lives, and to have the full force of the U.S. government dedicated to putting you down and crushing you is stressful. It's sad to watch. And I just wish people had, the people on the right had more empathy. It's just, so many of them claim to be Christians and then continue to do very unchristian things. And it's fucking sad to see.
Yeah. And to her credit, she also did mention that there was some privilege that, made her think, or at least blinded her to the possibility of this, like, coming directly to her. And that's the recurring message. We all know this guy, is a petty person, but like, he's petty to the level of affecting you as an individual. There are all sorts of nightmarish scenarios that they are cooking up precisely to like make your life more difficult. And there's no amount of privilege that is going to protect you from it. There's no amount of being a veteran that is going to protect you from it. There's no amount of being white that is going to protect you from it. There's no amount of being non-DEI. Whatever you think non-DEI is, you could be the anti-DEI. This shit is still coming to your doorstep. I don't know what to tell you people.
Yeah, you can be some macho dude who just loves nature and hanging out in national parks, and then you go to your favorite hiking trail and it's closed because your park is understaffed because Elon fired everyone. This stuff affects people no matter how much you think it doesn't. It affects people. But I want us to talk about something less frustrating and saddening, because we should. And we talked about this last week. We are going to find things that make us happy, or at least less annoyed. Every week on this podcast, we're going to try and do that. And so this week, because the Oscars are coming and we both love the movies, we are going to talk about Oscar nominations. I want to say, like, if you listen to the last part of the podcast and now you're like, wait, Oscars? Yes, we're talking about the movies, guys. Everyone watches them. Let's discuss. Best Picture nominees, Olu. I don't want to go through the whole list because, quite frankly, it's long, in my opinion. But I want to know, since you know the list of movies, how many of the Best Picture nominees have you seen?
I have seen 2, Conclave and The Brutalist.
Okay. That's okay. The Brutalist is the 3-hour-long architecture one, or architect movie, right?
Yes, it's about an architect who moves to Pittsburgh post World War II.
Okay, so it's about an immigrant taking jobs from Americans. That's what it's about. Good
Exactly.
to know. Yeah. Those Hollywood people, they love their politics. Okay, so I'm surprised because I have seen more than you. Which usually this is not the case. I want to say in Olu and I's friendship, she's the classy one and she sees movies like The Brutalist. On the list, I have not seen The Brutalist because it's 3 hours long and has an intermission. I have seen Conclave, so I'm proud of myself for that. But the other movies I saw that were nominated were Wicked and Dune Part 2 and The Substance. So I did better than you this year for the list, Olu, and I think it's because they had more interesting movies this year, none of that boring artsy stuff. So, good for me.
Well, to be fair, I'm also the old auntie who doesn't know who Hunter Schafer is, so it's okay.
That's true.
We balance each other out.
That's true. But we both saw Conclave. Is that your pick then, since you haven't seen the other ones?
I will say, that is my pick. I really did like the character study and how, like, nobody was really straightforwardly moral and nobody was amoral, and I liked the crisis of faith, angle to it. And I just also just like the petty machinations going on amongst all of the candidates and people's egos and hypocrisy. I thought it was a good study of human character, like just outside of the papal,
Oh my
the
God.
papal Catholic thing.
This is okay. You're making me laugh because you gave this very like thought analysis. You're like, oh, I love the human nature aspect of it. Okay, so this is I actually forgot one of the movies I had seen. So the movies I have seen on the list, I've seen Conclave, I've seen The Substance, I've seen Dude Part 2, I've seen Wicked, and I've also seen Anora. I would pick from that list for Best Picture. For me, honestly, if I'm being truly honest and true to myself, my favorite movie on that list was Dune Part 2. I know it's not gonna win. Before anyone chimes in, I know I'm delusional. It's not going to win. But if I had to pick, that would actually be my favorite. And second place would be The Substance. But because I know that's not how the Oscars are going to work, I think from my list, the picture I would pick that would be a surprise win would be Conclave. I did actually think it was a really good movie. I don't know if I would review it the way you did. But I agree. It kept me on the edge of my seat. I wasn't sure who was good, who was the bad guy, in quote, and I was interested in the story, and I couldn't believe they had made the selection of the Pope such an interesting topic. You know what I mean? And I'm Catholic. Well, I was born Catholic. I'm not Catholic anymore because I haven't gone to church in decades. But I couldn't believe they made such a sort of bureaucratic process fascinating, which if you think about it, it is, right? Because picking the Pope is kind of a political thing as well. And I actually thought it kind of mirrored politics in America. Like some of them, I was see, because it was this pull between like the more liberal Pope and the more conservative traditional Pope. And so there was some of that in there as well, which I thought mirrored politics. So I think Conclave should win. But that's at least we agree on that.
Yeah, I think we should have said spoiler alert because we're like going into a lot of detail here.
Well, we didn't say. I mean, we're just saying. I'm just telling. Listen, I don't think it's a spoiler to say there's a pull between two different parts of the Catholic Church in Conclave. You should watch the movie. It's good. I didn't say who they picked, so that's a spoiler.
That's true. You're right. People were doing like opposition research against each other. There was a lot of like mean girl stuff going on in the background.
There was.
I thought it was good. I really liked the Brutalist as well. It's about a Holocaust survivor. And obviously it's 3 hours long because it's just like this man's journey through America and trying to make something of himself and of his family, and how that led to him having a lasting effect on like America's architectural, landscape. And it doesn't shy away from like his personal struggles and his personal demons. The problem I have is that like I just personally do not like consider Adrian Brody that great of an actor. I have to say that in like a whisper.
Wow, I love how your voice just went a little lower. You're like, ooh, I gotta speak this in whispers before the fans find me. Yeah. I like Adrian Brody. I think he's a good actor. He's a little intense, I think, but he takes it seriously. But he can also chill and be chill. I don't know. Why don't you like Adrian Brody?
I don't know.
It's just a vibe.
It's just a vibe. It wasn't believable to me. I didn't think he like fully like immersed. Like you want to watch an actor and not think like, like that's Adrian Brody. Like for Ralph Fiennes and Conclave, like I really, really thought he was the dean. Like
yeah, he was the cardinal. Yeah, it was believable.
Exactly. That's what I've found, and this is not the first time I felt that about Adrian Brody's films. But in terms of picture, which is really the major category that films want to win, I do think it's a serious contender as well.
The Brutalist.
Yeah.
For Best Picture? Yeah. I hope it's Conclave though, but we know what some people would like to lose and lose bigly is Amelia Perez.
Did
Netflix.
you just use a Trump word?
Yes, I did. I'm so sorry.
Okay, you need to go into the corner and think about what you've done for like
No,
5 minutes.
I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. But Amelia Perez has annoyed so many people. And you may be listening thinking, oh, this is about what the actress tweeted. No, we're not even going to get to that. First thing they did, I want to say that I have not seen the movie. I've seen snippets of it. I have seen analysis of it. I have seen reviews of it. I have seen parts of it. I have not seen the full movie from start to finish. The storyline does not interest me, so I just never watched it. But people are not happy with Amelia Perez. People are not happy with the lead actress for the things she tweeted. People are not happy with the directors and writers because of the way they portrayed the country of Mexico. Like, the country of Mexico is mad at Amelia Perez. And trans people are also very upset at how trans people were portrayed in the movie, even though the lead actress is, a trans person. And so for various reasons, Amelia Perez went from being a darling of the Oscar circuit to very quickly, it seems, losing momentum and being seen as sort of a bad movie that nobody should support, which is unfortunate for the cast because Zoe Saldana and Selena Gomez, I have heard, did an amazing job. And so it's unfortunate that the movie they're part of is now, part of this massive controversy this year at the Oscars.
Yes, it's unfortunate that this keeps happening. Obviously, we don't have enough queer stories and trans stories and stories about people who live outside of what is considered the norm. And it's always, difficult to, get things right. And then there's always the question of, well, who actually has the right to tell the story? So I have not seen this particular film, but it just does remind me of the sort of backlash, although on a very much smaller scale and less offensive scale, to like Killers of the Flower Moon. And,
which I saw and hated.
Yeah, which I saw and hated as well because, just a lot of Native Americans, actually all the Native Americans were like just portrayed as these docile people who just did not have any control or did not want to do anything to direct their own lives. Like, they just took away all of their agency. And this is...
Which is historically inaccurate, right? Like,
exactly.
That's not what actually happened. People did fight to keep their land, their rights, their money, and got squashed by the government. So,
exactly. So it's unfortunate that this keeps happening when they tell films about people's lives. That it just... I'm looking for that like quote, like they will kill you and then say that you enjoyed it, right? Like they do things to oppress you and make your lives difficult and horrible, and then they tell the story like you didn't have anything to say about it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what's happened with Amelia Perez because so the director and producer and all that are from France and Spain, talking about characters set in Mexico, a country that you can hear from, France and Spain are not Mexico. And so it's interesting that they decide to tell the story there. And for those of you who are like, oh, what's Amelia Perez about? Super high level, without giving you any spoilers. It's about a lawyer played by Zoe Saldana who has to defend someone from a murder, and she wins her case for her client, which brings her to the attention of a cartel boss who hires Zoe Saldana as his lawyer to help him escape Mexico. And their plan for helping this cartel boss escape Mexico is to become a trans woman. So changing genders, changing that cartel boss's identity. And that's high level of the story. And then from there's a bunch of stuff that happens. I don't want to spoil it, but basically being trans in the movie is portrayed as like a disguise to escape police. So things like that. And then again, like I said, the way this French and Spanish team portrayed the country of Mexico, like it's all cartels and danger. And, those are things that are not going to go over well with those groups of people. And so that's part of why this backlash has been so strong in those communities.
Exactly. And it takes a special level of hubris and a special level of just blindness to decide that of all the trans stories to tell, you want to tell the least representative trans story possible. How many people are changing genders just to escape consequences for criminality? That's exactly one person you found in Mexico. Meanwhile, there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of trans people around the world living in multiple different countries, living their lives in various levels of being out or hiding. And this is the story they choose to tell. I mean, come on.
And it's Oscar nominated and won a bunch of awards already, right? It's darling movie at Cannes, massive hit at the Golden Globes. It's just sometimes Hollywood, we love y'all. Other times it's kind of like, who are we choosing to elevate and, push forward to represent? We should ask ourselves that question. But with that said, if you have time this week, definitely check out some of these movies. I recommend Olu, since you haven't seen it. I'm not going to recommend Dune because I know you hate any and all sci-fi comic book type movies. So graphic novels,
why are
I'm going to
out in all my lameness.
It's not lame. It's your choice. You don't like Dune. That's fine because you're a hater. That's fine. I'm saying you should watch. I think you would enjoy Anora. I think you would enjoy The Substance, definitely. So I would recommend you watch those two before the Oscars next week. And let us know your thoughts on Threads.
Absolutely. You keep telling me to turn off the news. So instead of watching Jesse Waters, I would just watch The Substance.
Oh my God, yes. Demi Moore is amazing in that movie. And The Substance, if you haven't seen it, people who are listening, there's so little dialogue in the film, but it's excellent. It's so good. And I hope you guys enjoy it if you do watch it.
Thank you for joining us this week. We've been Olu and Liz. Please do join us next week. As always, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and liberalbanter.com. You can also find us posting on Threads or TikTok. See you next week. Bye-bye now.